we had our first Streetlights Outreach block party of the season on Friday evening in Whitney Park. It was really nice. We had about 250 people turn out. We had a chance to see a number of volunteers we haven't seen since last summer, and a lot of the residents who live in the area came out, and we were able to just spend some time and build some community, and I was able to catch up with a number of people. But I spent some time speaking to one guy named Rob, and I've met Rob before, and Rob is homeless. He's been homeless for quite a while. It's a chronic situation for Rob, and he has a pretty gruff exterior. It's pretty hard. If you met Rob, you probably wouldn't like him. But I would probably be even worse if I had journeyed what Rob has journeyed in life. Sometimes I meet people and I hear their stories, and I want to just sit down and cry. It seems like the only appropriate human response. Some people are just born into such difficult, trying circumstances, they don't have a chance. When I think of the trauma that so many people experience from the time they're small children, throughout their lives, again and again, it's heartbreaking. We have to be so careful not to judge other people. We just don't know their stories. We just don't know where they're coming from. So I was spending a little bit of time chatting with Rob, and I reminded him that there was plenty of food and he should please feel free to help himself to another hamburger or two, or take some extra cookies and pack them up for the road. And Rob looked at me and said, "Thank you for being so nice to me." And it took me aback a bit. It was a very vulnerable thing for a guy like Rob to say, "Thank you for being so nice to me." And then he continued and he said, "You Catholics." Now I usually take a step back and brace myself when someone says, "You Catholics." But Rob continued, "You Catholics are always so nice." Wow, what a wonderful thing to hear. You Catholics are always so nice. So I had a completely different homily prepared for this feast of the body and blood of Christ. I spent about 3 weeks preparing it. I thought it was pretty good. It's filled with all sorts of really deep, wise insights into the nature of Eucharistic essence and substance. And then I encountered the body and blood of Christ in the image of Rob. And I was reminded to climb down out of my own head. Eucharist, it's not a head thing. It's a heart thing and a soul thing. We Catholics might be nice, but we sure like intellectualizing things. We love our 50-cent words. The official name of this feast is the Solemnity of Corpus Christi. We like words like sanctification, consecration, transubstantiation. And if we're not careful, this whole experience can be reduced to a mind exercise, and we can keep it all up in our heads and never really let it touch our hearts. When Jesus takes bread and he breaks it And he reaches out to us and says, take it. This is my body. And when he takes the cup and he takes a drink from it and he gives it to us and he reaches out with this cup and says, take it. Drink of it. This is my blood poured out for you. He's not proclaiming some sort of metaphysical dissertation that you need a PhD in theology to understand. He is showing us how to live and how to love, how to break ourselves open and pour ourselves out for one another. He is saying, here is me. Let me be part of you. Let me break myself open and pour myself out so that I can become part of you. Think about that. When someone says, I want to be part of you, why? That's about the nicest thing imaginable that a person can say. Of course, then he says, do this in memory of me. Do this over and over, again and again. Never let it stop. Keep doing it. Keep letting me be part of you. Let me be one with you. And then you do the same, because you too then become the body of Christ. And you too can go out in the world and break yourself open and pour yourself out and become part of one another, become one with one another. And if we all lived that way, if we all really lived that way, that we were willing to break ourselves open and pour ourselves out and enter into a sense of oneness with one another, that'd be a pretty nice world, wouldn't it? That'd be a pretty nice world. So we had 250 people show up in the park on Friday. The oldest was in his 80s. The youngest was 3 weeks old. They were black and white and Asian and Hispanic and Native American. Some lived in relative comfort. Some were homeless. But they gathered together and they broke bread and they were nice to each other. And that's really an amazing thing. So many people who are so different can come together and break bread and be really nice to one another. And that Holy Communion that happened in Whitney Park on Friday really isn't very different from the Holy Communion that happens here with us. We too are the body of Christ, breaking ourselves open and pouring ourselves out. You Catholics are always so nice. Thank you for being nice to me.